So I see a lot of comments from men talking about how the patriarchy doesn't exist and it's actually men who are oppressed. So let's take a minute to explain what's going on and what the reality is. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of Bob here. Bob is a genuine guy who really does believe that men and women are equal and are born that way. Now, as Bob goes through life, he begins to perceive women getting a number of advantages that don't apply to him. They don't get drafted, they get to stay at home, there are specific loans for female-owned businesses, and so what Bob sees is women pulling far ahead, leaving men way behind. And as Bob takes a broader look, including men and women from various different groups across society, he sees that same pattern. Everybody is born equal, but he perceives the Overwatch folks getting specific advantages. And the Star Wars group with more money and political power get more advantages. And then the women in those groups get those same advantages we talked about before. And before you know it, poor Bob is at the back of the class looking at everybody else getting ahead and feeling like men are thoroughly disadvantaged. The reality is very different. While we may think we're all equal, the circumstances into which you are born will already greatly affect the opportunities that are available to you in life. For the vast majority of history, Bob here has been the only one that could acquire wealth, property, and power. The rights for everybody else for those things are less than 5 to 6 generations old. Their grandparents' started a race that this dude has been crushing for centuries. The end result is that it looks a little more like this, where certain men are less advantaged than particular women, and certain women are more advantaged than other women. But make no mistake, Bob here still has the lion's share of advantage. Now for Bob, this feels wrong because he too struggled to make ends meet. He doesn't feel advantaged, and there's certainly a lot of people who feel more advantaged than him, such as the wealthy sharks who are way ahead of everybody, and for whom laws are just sort of more of a suggestion. But simply because there are people who are more advantaged than you does not mean that you yourself have not enjoyed the benefits of certain privileges. And there may also be ways in which what you think are privileges are not actually. We've already covered how stay-at-home parenting is not necessarily an advantage, but an economic disadvantage. And there are more subtle ways in which these advantages show up that might not be obvious. For instance, men are more likely to complete treatment programs for substance use because these programs do not provide daycare, disproportionately affecting women who more often have kids, causing them to drop out and not be able to get the treatment that they need. I feel the fear for men is if they accept this reality, then they have to keep their heads bowed and apologize for all of the sins of their ancestors, and that's not really the goal here. The goal is, as we continue the modern work of dismantling these patriarchal systems, by better understanding how they harm and disadvantage select groups, including men, we can provide better solutions that end that harm. But if we start by denying reality, then the solutions we offer are no good because they're not fixing a real problem. Meanwhile, the very real harm done to all groups, including men, will just continue.